Oh, I think I did. I forgot to say start all over on YouTube. Well, it's going now. I forgot to set it to all my other places. Well, that's okay. They didn't miss nothing. So everybody who's tuning into YouTube, there was a little part in the front there where I said hi to everybody. You didn't miss nothing. You didn't miss nothing big yet. We haven't got into the 3D design yet. So there's like, I have my main thing, which goes to Twitch, and then I have to press a button and it starts streaming to the other 3 locations, or it switches to YouTube, goes to Kick, and also to Facebook at the same time. But I got it going on. It's working now. We all good. We all good. What up, Rotisserie G coming in saying hello. What up, Rotisserie G? Good to see you, man. Always good to see you. Wrong multi-stream. Thank you, Wiz. Thank you again. I figured it out before I saw that, but I appreciate it. Having my back again. Forgot to hit the button. I'm always doing a gigantic checklist of stuff, and then stuff doesn't work, and things are not loading, and then I have to fix that. And that's why sometimes that vault door doesn't open, everybody. I don't open that vault door until I feel like everything's stable. And then once I feel like it's stable, I say, okay, boom, let's go. Because usually when I start it up, that's the only time you're going to know whether it's working or not. I mean, you can test it offline, but the only way you're really going to know, just like in love, everybody, is to dive in. Is to dive in and see if it's going to work. AMZ in the chat. What up, Dio? Good to see you. Appreciate you big time. I'm ready for some Medieval Destiny later tonight, everybody. We're going to have some, or Dynasty. Stop it, Kismet. My name's Kismet, so I think of Dynasty. Right there. Now, see, look, I got it backwards again. Destiny. So I think of Destiny because my name's Kismet, which means destiny or fate as well. So I don't know. I switch stuff around. Coming in with the lurker love. Thank you very much. Now, again, everybody, feel free to follow along. We're going to start you off with the basics of camera work and a bit of rendering. Show you the difference between the different rendering styles, how to improve your rendering times and all of that. A little bit of texturing, a little bit of lighting, a little bit of everything. We're going to sprinkle it all in and make ourselves a little bit of fun today on the stream. So let's go to it. Best time to do something is right away. Let's go. All right, thanks for coming in and hanging out, everybody. Now, the best way to start and learn anything is just start with it basic. I can put a whole big complex thing in there with all my 3D animations that I've done, but always start with a basic. I just started a new file, and in that new file, you have your 3 basic things. You have your camera, you have your box, and of course, you have your lighting. Now, what we're going to talk about is a little bit more advanced, and that's instead of moving the object, which we talked about last time on how to take an object like this, we hit G to go move, and then we hit Y to move it along the Y frame. So we can take the object, say, right here, and we're going to pull up our animation sheet down here at the bottom. And we're just going to rotate this over a little bit. We're going to go ahead and try to make this a little smaller, like, there we go. So I'm not blocking it so you guys can see what's going on. All right, so if we go to frame number 1 and we hit I, we can say location, right? So it's going to track where it's located at. So it's going to put what's known as a keyframe right there. So then I hit G and then Y to snap along the Y frame. I go over here, I hit I again, I say location, because we're not going to do any rotation or anything like that. But I did something wrong. Now, what it just did is it just moved it there. And the reason why is because I didn't move this, right? I have to move this forward a certain amount of time. So let's undo that. Let's move that back. And let's say that our animation is going at 30 frames a second. So what you're telling it, if you go to frame 30, that I want it to be right here when it starts, and then 30 seconds later, I want it to be wherever it's going to end up, right? If you want it to be there in 15 seconds, well, then you got to make it, if you want it to be there at half a second, then you want to send it, then you would do 15 frames, right? So it's all about timing, understanding timing, and no matter how much you get it down in here, you won't really know until you've rendered it and processed it on how well it is. And after a while, you get a sense of it as well. So let's go ahead and try that again. We're going to go G. We're going to move this along the Y axis. There we go. Put that over there. And again, see our timeline is moved there, our timeline thing. Now we're going to hit I. We're going to hit location. And now, if you look here, there's 2 little diamonds. And those 2 little diamonds mean keyframes. Now, had I not moved it, and I'm going to move it back again, and I'm just going to hit I, I'm going to hit location. Had I not moved it and it's sitting still, you're going to see this kind of a bar across there. That means that it's staying static, that it's staying in place. So if you have a lot of objects you're moving, say you have 50 objects that you're moving, you can very quickly see which ones are animated and which ones are not animated, all right? So we're going to undo that. Well, G, Y, move it over here, hit I, location, and now it's animated. You're like, how do you know it's animated? Because I can just press the button over here, and I know that it's moving across there. All right, so a little recap from last time. Super easy to move the object, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to undo all of that. But what if we wanted to move the camera, right? So this is the camera view. I hit 0 on the number pad so that I can zoom in on it and see what the camera's going to be. Now, when you go to render it, which is why this is camera work and rendering, if the camera's not aiming at anything, you're not going to get anything. Like there, we're getting our cube. But if we take the camera, and we can actually do a little trick up here as well, in our view, we can say camera to view, and then I can just rotate the view and just kind of move that off to the side. And that actually is what's going to happen. Now, if I go to render it, actually, I'll put the cube just a little bit in there so you can see it. And if I go to render it, you're going to see it just got the edge of the cube. Or if your camera's just aiming at nothing, guess what you're going to render? That's right. I know, it's a shocker. It's nothing. So that camera position is very, very important. Again, everybody, I'm holding down Shift and middle mouse button, by the way, to do what's known as pan. This is pan. And when you let go of Shift, you hold down the middle mouse button. It's called orbit, right? So you're orbiting around. So that gives you a general idea. Now we can use that to actually animate the camera too, or we can just go up to the top, which is usually the easiest way because we can see the camera is right over here on the side. And we can animate it that way. The hardest thing is keeping the camera aimed at the object. There is an actual lock where you can actually lock it to the object and it will orbit around the object. We're not going to get into that advanced stuff today, but I'm going to show you a little bit on how to animate the camera to get you started. So instead of animating the object, we're going to animate the camera and get that going a little bit over there. Yes, other chat. Hello, other chat. I see you on Kick over there. I appreciate it. Is that old? Is what old? I'm old. What's old? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I love when people come in and they talk about stuff. I have no idea what they're talking about. No idea. No idea. What's old? I don't understand. I don't understand what you're talking about. Try to say it in a full sentence. All right, here we go. So we're going to go into here and we're going to hit I, and we're just going to say location and rotation because we might rotate the camera to match it. We're not going to scale the camera most often. Most of the time, when you're working with the camera, it's location and rotation. So that means we're going to change the location of it and then the way it rotates to look at the object. So location and rotation. So first we got it in its first spot, and we look through the camera by hitting 0. We can see what it's going to see. This border here is the edges of the actual rendering that it's going to do. And then again, we hit 7 to go up from the top part. And then we're just going to hit G. But before we do, we want to think, okay, wait a minute. How many seconds should it take to pan around there? So think to yourself, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, right? Okay, we're at 30 frames a second, so that would be 60 frames. So we would scroll forward 60 frames right there. And let me go ahead and actually cut this down to say 100 frames. So this would be easier for you guys to see down here. There we go. Oh, that's much better, much better. And then we'll pull this over so you guys can see. All right, there we go. So now we're at 60 frames. So at 60 frames, I want to take a couple seconds to kind of pan around the object, and I want it to end up over on this side. So I'm going to move it to this side, and then I'm going to hit R to rotate, and I'm going to rotate it around and aim it right back at the object. So it might be a little close. So we're going to back that away, and then we're going to say the location and rotation. Now, it rarely ever does what you think it's going to do. So the best way to know what it's going to do is to try it. Let's see what it does. It totally looked away from the object, didn't it? Let's do it again. Look what happened. It's just like looking off the wrong way. So what happened is when I rotated it, I didn't rotate it in the direction in which it should go. And this is how everything happens, everybody. Oh, thanks, Foggy, for watching my chat. This is how this stuff happens. You try it, you go, oh, wait, that's not right. And then you fix it, right? And that's okay. So we're going to go ahead and back that back up again. Over here, we can see we don't have a keyframe anymore over here. This time we're going to go ahead and move it, but this time we're going to be a little smarter so we can move it in between. So we're going to go to 30 We're going to hit G, and we're going to move it this way, and we're going to think about the way that it's going to swing the camera, right? And I want to kind of, the object to kind of go out a little bit. We'll mess around with that later. But let's say we move it here first, so it's not such a drastic move. And then we'll say location and rotation, and then we'll look at the way it's rotating. Ah, there we go. So now it's rotating toward the object, right? This is some good camera work here. This is some good camera work. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see that. Pan this down a little bit. Maybe up just a little bit. There we go. So you guys can see the way that the camera is moving. It's kind of looking toward the object. And then when we get to frame 60, we'll go ahead and move it again with G, rotating it over here, or moving it over here. It'll stay on the same plane since I'm looking down from the top. It'll keep it from moving up and down. It'll just move it straight across. One of the advantages of using your orthographic views, that's your top, bottom, left, right. That's what orthographic means. It means from straight on. And then I can go ahead and now rotate it again a little bit more, looking back at the object, hit I, location and rotation, and there we go. Super easy, much better in the way that it goes, right? Much better. Now let's actually see it through the camera. All right, not too bad, though I'd probably want to move it down a little bit, maybe fine tune it in the different parts. So first part's fine. Second part here, a little high up. So what we can do is go to this frame and actually use this to move. Now remember, I have this little option on over here. It's called camera to view. So when I actually modify the camera view, it's actually moving the camera in three-dimensional space, right? And where the camera is looking. So again, if we look over here on the side, we can see that some of these have been modified. So we hit I over here, it'll automatically take the orange and turn it to yellow, meaning that it did take that in there. And then again, in our final one, we'll go ahead and just move this up a little bit. So the final shot is here, which is actually going to move the camera down, which makes the object go up, right? So opposite there. And then again, we just go over here, hit I. We go into rotation, hit I. All of it looks good. And then we go back. We should have more of it being in the frame. Now we have a little bit of a loop there. See how it does that kind of double loop? And that's because it's going around the edge and then ending up on the far edge. Now, if we want to fine tune that as well, instead of it dropping out like that, we could go into the middle, same thing, move it up a bit. So it's up a little bit higher. I, location and rotation, and then just try to hold it in the center. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Yeah. The kids are showing you all the best stuff, everybody. Showing you all my best stuff in here in the stream. But see how easy it was to fix that, to keep it focused on it. Now, you can also lock it on the object again. I'm not doing that. I'm just teaching you the basics of the camera first, because this is going to be very frustrating. It's going to be like it did before, where it flips the camera the wrong way and does stuff. That means you're moving it too far. You're expecting it to do too much work for you. Now, there is Bezier curves you can use, where you're using a curve, and you can go in and fix all of that. It's way more advanced than just putting some extra points in and not moving it as far, right? So when you're moving it, that's what you want to do. And that's the basics of the camera, everybody. That's pretty much all you need to know. Just a bit of tips to get you started with your camera and having your camera move instead. Now, what we're going to do is go ahead and take all of these out. We can just delete those by highlighting them. As you saw there, I just clicked, hold down, highlighted all of those, and we're going to move this back to the center. Now, what I'm going to do with the camera is I'm going to go up to the top here. I'm going to take my camera, and I'm going to think about which way is the front view. If we hit 1, it's going to show us the front of the actual thing. We can see the red line, which is our X, and then, of course, our blue line, which is our Z, and there is another line in there, a green line, which is our Y, which means that our Y is pointing directly at us, right? So if we look at an angle, number 2, we can see that green line's coming straight at us. So that is the actual front of where our default view is, right? So there's a positive number and a negative number, right? So if you got the ground plane right here, the positive number up, negative number down, right? Positive number, negative number, positive number, negative number, right? Those are all important things to know when you're typing in all of your coordinates. You can see, like right now, it's got a -4 over there. Maybe you can't because it's got a small, but it's got a -4y. Now, if I move this and I move it over here, and then I'm going to rotate it toward the thing here, and I'm going to try to line it up, and it looks like it's lined up, but if I hit 0, I can tell you it ain't. That's because it's up in the air. So if we look at it from the side, We can go in to our side views here. There we go. Number 3. And we can see that it's way up here looking down, right? So what we want to do is move this down onto the plane and then hit R to rotate. And we're going to try to send that straight at it. Now, another thing that we can do is just do the numbers over here, the rotation, right? So we can say rotation of Z is 0. And see how it's squared off? So it's not rotating it vertically anymore. We can say the rotation of Y is 0. What does that do? Okay, now that flipped it so it's perfectly straight across. And the rotation of X also 0. Oh, wait, that's not what we wanted. Right? We wanted actually to rotate along the X-axis so that it rotates up. So we're going to go Command Z to that. But we want it to be perfect. So we're going to put in 90 degrees because we want to rotate 90 degrees. So we could use all of our numbers over there to fix our camera. So our camera is looking directly at the actual object. And you can see we're directly at the object. Now you're like, well, Kismet, it's not perfect. That's because you got to look at it from the top as well. And you can see from the top that it's actually offset, right? It's not along that axis, right? So we can hit G and we can just move it and try to do it ourselves. Or we can just look at the numbers over here. Location on X, we can say 0. And now it is perfectly in the center on X. It is perfectly lined up. What about Y, right? Y is the distance between us in the middle, or us and the block right now. We don't want to adjust that, or it's going to move the camera forward, right? If I put that to 0, it's going to move the camera forward along the green line, which is your Y-axis. So we don't want to do that. Control Z to undo. Z is going the up and down. We don't want it to be up at all. We want it to be dead on the thing. And there we go. We fixed it all by the numbers, everybody, which is kind of cool, I think. And then you hit 0. Boom. Look how perfect that is. The distance between the bottom and the top, how perfectly aligned in the center. Both the side areas are exactly the same. So you can fix your camera as well by those numbers, just knowing at which axis that you're setting your camera on. Now, why do we want to do this? Well, first, it's too close because we're cutting off some of the blocks. So let's go ahead and tell it over here by the numbers. Then again, remember, we're going this way. Down would be negative, right? Negative is coming towards you, positive going away in the case of the Y. So we're going to say minus 8, and then move that back. Then hit 0 to bring it up. There we go. Now we got the whole object. Now, one of the tricks that I use in animation is if you have all this complex stuff going on, everybody, that sometimes I don't move the objects, especially when you're doing character animation like I do. If you move the objects, it makes it a lot tougher, unless you tie them to a point and then you move them, which I do on the Kismet Love Train. But you can actually just move the camera and it will give the illusion of the object itself moving. Now, because we're straight on with the thing, we're not getting any perspective either. So one of the things that we can do is we can go in and try to move this up just a little bit, just so we can get a perspective. And then the tough part here is getting it to rotate in such a way that we can see, right? So we can kind of see the whole block. So what we'll do, again, go to the side. I'm just showing you how to do some camera work. A little bit of rotation up here. Rotation here. Rotate it down. Again, we just want to see the edge of this cone, basically, almost like it's shining a light on it, but it's really shining the lens on it so we can see. Rotate that a little better. And then if we want to fine-tune it, again, Shift, middle mouse button, and we can fine-tune it looking fairly close on. So I fixed the camera so I get back to a base point, and then I adjusted the camera so I can get a feeling of it's actually three-dimensional. If you do it from the beginning, you might as well do a 2D object because it's just going to move like a 2D object. Okay, so now we're going to take the camera oh, I forgot to take that first keyframe out. All right, let's do it again. I just messed up. No problem. No problem. We got this. Watch how fast I can do it now. If we just do it by the numbers over here without even thinking about it, we can say that the rotation of X is 0. We can say Y 0, Z 0, and then go back, put in 90. Location along X is going to be 0, so it's perfectly aligned in the center. On Z, it's going to be 0. It's going to drop down. This is going to be minus 8. And see, once you know that, look how fast I fixed it, everybody. I actually didn't mean to do that on purpose, but it was a great illustration anyway, because I forgot to take the keyframe out in the beginning. I didn't see that. I forgot that keyframe. But that's okay. Now we can do it again. You guys can get a general idea. Holding down Shift and right mouse button to move the camera up so I can just see a little bit of the perspective. 3 to see the side. Click on the camera. R to rotate. Rotate it down a little bit just to get an idea of what we want. got it on the first try. And there you go. So we got right back to the place where we just were very, very quickly and easily. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say I, and the only thing we need now is location. We're going to make the block move across the screen, right? So instead of it moving, the camera is going to move. And it's going to feel a little bit like the block is moving, but we'll know the camera is moving, right? So we've got it there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just hold down Shift and Control, or Shift and middle mouse button, and just kind of move it off to the screen like that, because the camera itself is actually moving. And then I, and then location, and it's as simple as that, everybody. Oh, unless it didn't take the first part. Hold on. Hold on. Did we not click the camera? Try that again. And then, oh, it's because I'm doing it in the view. I'm doing it in the view. All right, let's do it out here. And then we'll G move it. There we go. And then we can hit X so that it moves along the X axis. Like this. There we go. I had to pin the keyframe in there. If I do it the other way, I just remember that it will not make it move. It'll think it stayed in the same spot. Okay, so there we go. You get the general idea of how that works. Now, again, it feels like the cube is moving, but if you had a ground plane there, it would have a different feel to it. It's very subtle the way it works, too, because we just know that the camera's moving. Had we not known the camera moving, we might have thought that the actual object is moving, because the thing is, we're looking at the ground plane, and we have a reference when the ground plane is moving, when we see the ground plane, but we can't turn off the ground plane, and then now it just feels like the object is moving, right? It just feels like it's moving off the screen. So again, why would we want to do that? Well, camera moves require less intense calculation than object moving. If you have a complex object, you have it moving and morphing and spinning and doing all sorts of stuff, you could do the same thing with a camera move. That a lot of things to do. Same exact, great example is like when I'm moving the love train. If it's all you see is the track in the train, all I have to do is move the track in the train, or I can move the camera and have the train look like it's moving, but it's just me panning the camera across, right? So I can do either of those. On one of my things where you see the Kismet love train coming in over here, by the way, and I'll replay it for you guys right here. Let's say Crazy Aussie was the last one to come in. Right here. See how the track is moving right there? The only thing that's moving there is the track. The train itself is not moving. And then when you see that it moves forward like that, that's me. First, I'm having the camera stay there and the track is moving. And then at the end, I have it stop, and then the whole thing is moving together, which gives you that illusion of the train moving itself. Meaning that the track is sitting still and then the train's moving forward, but it's not. It's the camera is tracked to the actual tracks. So the train's in the perfect same spot and the tracks are moving along with the camera. And so it looks like, you know, because the camera is panning off the side, just like this, right? So the camera's panning off the side. And what does that save me? All I had to do was animate the wheels, and I didn't have to have it calculate it move the entire train. This is a huge trick, everybody. A huge trick in 3D animation. It's one of the most important things I think I've learned is to not do it the hard way. Don't do 3D animation the hard way. Do it the easiest way possible that gives you the same result as if you did it the hard way, right? Again, I didn't have to make the train move at all. I just made the wheels move, and the train stays in the same spot the whole entire animation. So very, very tricky, very, very tricky stuff you can do with the camera itself. So moving the camera, making it look like the object is moving. Now, of course, if you have multiple objects moving, it's going to be a little bit more complex, but again, very, very tricky way of doing that. So that is the camera, and that gives you some basics of the camera. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my buddy Norbert, which you're going to recognize. There he is, my buddy Norbert. Now, he actually has a whole bunch of animation controls that I can do. Right over here, you can see all these different things. These are for mouth movements. Over here, we have different areas in which I can make his eyes look. I can tilt his head. I can do all sorts of stuff, even his fingers down here. If I zoom way in, you can see all the little controls on his fingers, so I can make his fingers move and all of that. That is called rigging, where you rig a character as well. Now, one of the things that I do want to illustrate, whoa, take it easy there, take it easy. One of the things I want to illustrate, look at my buddy Norbert. One of the things I want to illustrate is the different types of rendering. Now, I'm gonna move this fall off for hope thing here. I think it's blocking my. Doesn't matter where I put it, everybody. It's always blocking. But you know, I try to show them some love this year, everybody, like I do every single year. Doesn't matter where I put it. All right, I'm gonna put it. Let's see if we can find a spot. Let's put it at the bottom over here. I don't think it's going to cover up too much stuff down here. There we go. This way you guys can see all that stuff up at the top. There we go. So up here at the top, we've got our different scenes. Now, all these little buttons down here do something different, right? All those little buttons over there on the side. And the first one that we're going to do is render, because we're going to talk about rendering as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and render this in the 3 different types that it has. Now, I'm going to do it in the lowest one called Workbench. Now, Workbench, you can kind of see what's going on behind there, too. You can see his feet back there. You can see through all of that. But when we go in and we render the image, the only thing it's going to do is give us kind of a rendering of the model itself. So we can just kind of get an idea of the shapes and sizes of the model before we add the texturing. The texturing, of course, is what makes it look realistic, along with your lighting as well. So now we're also going to go in and we're going to go ahead and render it with the next level. So Workbench, lowest level, EV is the next level. And when we go in and render it with EV, we can see a big problem. What's the problem, everybody? Let me know in the chat. What's the #1 problem you see in this render right here? I'm going to see if you guys can figure it out. Don't worry, it's super obvious. Correct. It's his eyes. His eyes are freaky. Now, why does his eyes look like that in the first place? Well, his eyes are like that because they are using a reflection. So there's multiple layers to his eyes. There's just like in your real eyes, you have an overlapping thing. Like you see in my eyes, you can see that they shine. That's that overlapping clear fluid or clear membrane over your eye. And so that has a reflection. And so that's what this is. That's showing that reflection. But it's not being transparent. That's his biggest problem. So it's got the reflection. It should be transparent and a very low amount of transparency. So you can see through that outer layer and see the inner eye of Norbert. It's kind of freaky too, right? Now, also another thing that you're going to notice is that the texturing is not that great on this. As also a lot of what's to do with light bouncing, aka ray tracing, where light will hit and bounce off. You also have shadows and highlights, all of that stuff that's not being generated as well as it could. Now, of course, the more you move up those rankings, of course, EV is good for some things, right? Some things are just fine to render in there. But when it comes to transparencies and when you want to get a realistic effect, you want to go ahead and move up to cycles. Now, cycles, when we go to render cycles, by the way, I originally did this in Maya, by the way, and then brought it into Blender a long time ago. Norbert there, not the trains I did in Blender. But now if I render the image in cycles, you can see that it does it a little different. See all the little pixels coming up? And of course, that was super fast, everybody. That normally would take like 15 minutes in my other machine. But this machine does it super fast. Again, it has a 4090 in it. And again, you can see an obvious difference in the eyes and whatnot. Now, what I did on purpose is just add a little bit of lighting. And we're going to look at this and look at the difference that lighting makes on a rendering, right? So we're talking about rendering and a little bit of lighting. So if we want to add a little bit more lighting here, we can go in and we can go to add and we can say we want to add a light. Now, there's 4 different types of light. There's point light. There's like the sunlight where it's just going to light up everything. Point light's like a light bulb. Spotlight is just like, you would think a spotlight where you turn the spotlight on and it shines. Kind of like my Elgato key lights up here. They're actually shining down on me right now. And then an area light is kind of like a box light. Where have you ever seen those box lights? They're just like a big sheet of light and they're inside a box. And then they have usually a softening filter. And that softening filter goes in. Otherwise, you get really heavy highlights. Like especially in your thing. Now, I don't wear makeup on stream, everybody. So that's usually what they do. They'll make up your forehead because there's a big shine. One of the great things about the Elgato key lights, and this is not an advertisement for them, everybody, as well, But if you look at people's forehead, that's how good their lighting is. These LED lights are awesome. I have nothing over them. They're default out of the gate. I have two of them. One's called a key light, which is the main one that's shining on my face from the right side. And then I have what's known as a diffusion light or secondary light that diffuses the other side. But you got to leave the wrinkles. You got to read the darkness. You got to leave the darkness in my hair in the background. So I look three-dimensional to you. So you can see that my hands look three-dimensional. If you have bad lighting, then boom, everybody looks flat, or they look too dark, or there's too much shadow, or there's too much highlight. It is a very fine thing to do, right? It's a very fine balance between those different interactions. And the same thing in 3D. The same thing in there. I can tell you right now, this feels too dark to me, right? That's too dark. He needs a little bit more light on him to kind of bring him out, to give him a little bit more 3D feel to him and make it feel a little natural. So we're going to go ahead and add a light. Now I'm going to start with each and every light and show you the difference. We're going to go ahead and go add a point light. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of split this in half a little bit so I can also, I'm going to hit N to put that away. So I can also see where these lights are being produced. So I've got a point light here. I'm just going to bring it up to the top of the scene here and then hit G, and I can move that point light over here. Now, if we look at Norbert's face over here, we're going to really zoom in on it. If I move this light around, at some point it should have an effect on him, as well as I can turn up the power of the light. There we go. And if I crank that power of the light up, it should adjust the lighting of whatever it is. The problem is he's got a texture here, and it's not going to really show me on that texture. It'll show me over here, especially if I go in and I line that light up real close here. No. Give me that light. Gotta click off and click back on. There we go. And bring that light up, and then just crank up the power of it. Again, we should be seeing something with the light, right? But if we go to render it, we can see that now he's got a little bit more lighting, right? He's got a little bit more lighting in the thing. Now, it seems like that's a lot of power, 100 watts, but 100 watts is not a lot of power. If I put 5,000 in here, it should, in theory, wash it out. Watch what happens. Boom. See? That's what it should do, right? So you got to think of in terms of wattage like a light bulb wattage, right? So a light bulb wattage, 60 watts is not a lot. 100 is a bunch more. But 5,000 watts is like an industrial strength, like you're in a movie set or something like that level. And you can see we've gotten a whole, doesn't it have a whole different feel now? Little spooky feel to it, right? Based on that light. See, I like his little teeth sticking out of the side. That's one of my favorite things I added, where his teeth are just sticking just a little bit out the side, like he's grinning. It's pretty cool. Yes, I'll check it later, Wiz. I never check Discord during the stream. Because we only have so much time. I want to make sure I get maximum amount of time so you guys can get it. So again, that adjusts the feel. Now, watch this, everybody. We're going to take that out, and we're going to change the color of the light, right? We're going to change it to a blue over here. Then we're going to render it again. And then we're going to feel, how's it feel now? Does it feel a little cooler, a little saturated, little what's going on with this picture, right? What if we go in and we make it into more of a warm light, like a yellow light? And then we render it. Well, now we got something going on. It's a nice, warm, sunny day. Again, that lighting is critical. So again, if you only learned one thing in this stream, everybody, that your lighting is critical, big time. And then, of course, doing your coloring of your lighting as well. Now, we're going to just set that lighting back to white. And again, we can do that. Now, we can also do a spotlight. So we're going to go ahead and take this light out. We're going to go ahead and delete that out of there. And then we'll re-render it again so you guys can see what it looks like without the light in there again. See how dark it is again? There we go. And I left it dark on purpose, everybody. I actually had a bunch of lighting in there. I took it out so you guys can enjoy all this cool lighting info. And okay, now we're going to do sunlight. Now, sunlight is just what you would imagine it would be, right? So I put the sunlight in. I didn't change anything about it. Again, right there. So we're going to turn the sun up to about 5,000 again. And then render it again. Notice how it's not reflecting it all that well in here. And that's one of the things why you got to learn about rendering, right? Look at that. See how, again, if I had my, and I can turn these up, by the way, these key lights are at like 20%. I can crank them way up. You want to see me do it here like this? Watch this. I'll do it right here. Actually, I can do it on my phone too. Let me get my key lights up here. I got to remember where they're at though, because it took me a long time to get them balanced. Watch this if I do it also with my key lights. Yeah, they're about, no, they're 40%. So they're at 40%. Watch this. See how I just did it to me? See how I'm all washed out now? Again, best way to test it is to test it in real life. If you've got lights with a dimmer, is to see at what point that light becomes better. I'm going to crank that back down. Now, this is like 50 hours of redoing my lighting. I'm doing my lighting once I got my lighting, where I'm putting my lighting, how it affects my green, my background. You also need lighting on your green screen so you can balance that as well. And at different times of day, depending on the ambient light that you have, will affect also all of that lighting as well. So again, that's what we're doing right here. We're too much. It's too powerful, right? And also the angle of the sun makes a difference. So I'm going to leave it the same, but I'm just going to move it down more to the bottom and then render it again. And then we'll see. Wait a minute. Why didn't it shine down from the bottom? That's because it's the sun. So a sun has a universal position and angle up here, so we can adjust that angle right over there. I'm just going to adjust it, and then we'll look at it again. And you can see now the angle is coming from more this way, so it's actually rotated the sun a little bit, and now we're getting more across there. If you guys missed it from before, I'm just telling you what happened in case you didn't see it, and so on. Now, I typically don't use sunlight. Sunlight is a lot more difficult to manage. If you're doing an outdoor scene, you'd put your sunlight very low and just to kind of get a little bit of light. And light is something that you want to add gradually, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Right, and so we'll go in and we'll go ahead and add a spotlight. And just like you'd imagine, I'm going to go ahead and rotate it and aim it at the thing. I'm going to move it way away. And then again, render. Again, notice now it's not showing me my lighting there. And so you're like, well, Kismet, that didn't seem to do anything. Well, I can see it actually did a little bit of light because I've done it for a long time. But again, it is not strong enough, right? So again, I'm just doing it way above and beyond so you can see something changing. Because if I did it real subtly, there's no way, if you weren't familiar with it, that you would see it. See, nothing happened there. You're like, well, Kismet, you made it 5,000, but is it actually aiming at him? See, that's the thing. It looks like it's aiming at him over here, right? But if I go to 7, that light's way over here. It's not even there. So I'm looking at it down from the top now. So now I've got to hit G, move that over so it's actually aiming at Norbert there. Then we go ahead and render it, and then, there we go. But notice the really important thing that you want to notice here, everybody, is that this light has the same value of the other 2 lights that I did, right? So 5,000, 5,000, and 5,000 watts. But look how soft the spotlight is. So that's usually one of the #1 lights. Now, that's good lighting, everybody. Look how nice and even that lighting is. Look how realistic his fingers look with that lighting, because you're getting these highlights within the fingers. You're getting these really nice highlights in the heart there. This still has a definition. It is not all washed out and solid. His eyes are still looking good. You've got a nice shading on the outside eye. It's brought everything up to before. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you this one. So look at this one. And just for comparison, then we're going to take that out. We're going to turn this light off so it doesn't render. And then we're going to render it again. And then you can see the difference in the lighting, right? So see how much nicer that is? So most of the time I will use spotlights to do whatever I'm doing. Now there is another light, which is an area light. We're going to put one of those in there. We're going to move that over. We're going to check it out from the side. I've already kind of talked to you guys a bit on how to navigate and all of that, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But I want you guys to see this same thing. We're going to put this at 5,000. We're going to aim it at Norbert. We're going to look at it from the top and from the front to make sure that it is actually aiming at him. And then this is where that linking can come in, this little circle here. That means I can actually link it to something. I can aim it at a certain object. But I'm just going to go ahead and put that light in there, and then we're going to render it again. There we go. So this really gives you a feeling of it just very flat, heavy light, kind of like you turned the light on and just shined it on the thing. It's going to have this kind of spooky effect. And of course, in this, because it is projecting from that flat edge, much like the Elgato lights, I should probably bring those lights up for a second. Hold on. Just so you can see their shape here. Elgato. Go check it out. I appreciate Elgato, by the way. They make the best products, everybody. They have sponsored the channel before. I'd love to be a partner with them, but sadly, they've. I'm just not big enough streamer yet. Kismet gotta grow up. I gotta grow up a little bit first. But right here, let's go ahead and bring up the key lights. Just so you guys can get an idea what they look like. They look like this, everybody. So these are nice flat panels, which is basically the light that we're using right now. That's basically like a flat panel like this, and it's shining onto the object, right? And I actually have two of them. I have two of them, one on each side that shine down and even out the different sides. Now, if I turn off the lights, right, I'm going to do it on me. I'm going to turn off one of the lights just to show you. As a streamer over here, I'm just going to turn it off. I can actually turn it off just by pressing a button, by the way. Over here, boom, one of the lights off. Look at the difference. That's just one light off, everybody. And that light's only at like 40%. So if I turn it back on, look how more three-dimensional I look. Look how less three-dimensional I look, right? I'm sitting in the dark. What the heck? Kind of creepy, Kismet. What's the stream all about? Also, if you notice in the background that I've balanced it so that the green screen area goes away, let's do the other light. That is what's known as the key light. And then this one is my fill light. Okay, and that's just filling in the edges of my face and my chair and a little bit on this side. Now, this side, not so bad because this is the key light that's lighting me first. And again, like I said, you want to do it in layers. So you start with this, you get this side looking good, then you bring in your other lighting, and then you get the other side looking good, and there you go. And you wonder what I do when I'm not on stream, everybody. I spend hundreds of hours getting my lighting right. Again, so you want to try it in real life, get an idea of it, and then apply that to your 3D models. And so that's what we're doing right now. So I can go in this particular light and crank it down a little bit, obviously. We want to crank it down to, say, 2500. We're going to render it. And we still get that kind of spooky lighting, but it's a lot less of what it was. Now, we'll go down to, say, 50 watts, right? And then we'll render it, and we can see it's a lot less. So if I take the same idea that I'm using with my lights, and you can see the light is right here, I'm going to take the light, and I'm going to aim it this way. So I'm going to have one light coming from one side to kind of fill in those shadows on that side. So I'm going to go up to around, let's say, 500, just to see, so we can see a difference. And I'm aiming it from the side. Look how much nicer that is. Look at how soft that lighting is now. It's not so thing. But one of the cool things, if you notice very closely, look in his eye. See in his eye, you can actually see the light in his eyes reflecting in his eyes itself. Like in my eyes right now, see those little white things that are in my eyes? Those are the lights reflecting in my eyes. So really, really cool. Very, very cool that it actually renders that in there. And again, these are the things you want to take advantage of. Now, here's a really cool thing. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this light. We're going to grab this light and duplicate it. Let's go ahead and copy pasta that light, and then we're going to move it to the other side, and then rotate it in on the other side. Oh, I think we moved it a little weird there. All right, there we go. There we go. We got out of our view there. And then rotate like this, maybe a little more. Rotate from a little bit right there. And if we look at it, everybody, you can see the way the lights are pointing, right? So they're pointing from two different sides, and they're pointing right at the object. And so, again, we'll render it, and then we're going to see that both sides are now getting more lighting. Look how nice that is. See how clean that lighting is? Now, you don't want to have too much lighting. You don't want to lose all your shadows. See the shadow here? See the shadows along the edge and the shadows along here, or along the back, or along the edge in my hair? That's important. The dark areas is what defines the shape, right? Around the side of me here, in my chair, in the folds of my shirt. Those are called your midtones and your shadows, right? So like when I hold this here, you can see that it's blocking the light right here, and such as creating these perfect shadows. Those are important things to know about. Now, again, each one of those disciplines is usually a different person that does those things in animation. Like the animations you see in movies, you'll see one person just doing the lighting, one person doing the modeling, another person doing the character animation, another person doing the effects and compositing in the background with all the fire and lightning or whatever. All of those things are different disciplines in themselves that you can go down the rabbit hole and do that for just that one thing for a job. which I think is super cool. I did Unforgiven. I'm trying not to get sidetracked. I did. Thank you for posting that in there. What program are you using for my transportation jobs? I've been using Luminon. I am using Blender right now. Blender, totally free. Totally free, and use the power of free, everybody, when you're getting started. Instead of using Photoshop, you're like, Kismet, I don't got the money. You know what you do? You go grab GIMP, G-I-M-P. You go grab it. Use that. That's very much got a lot of the same Photoshop tools. You learn on that until you get to a point where you can make some money doing it. Then you go buy the real thing, because the real thing has a lot of tools that you're going to need. Me, I have had the Adobe products since they began. I used them at the beginning, very, very beginning as well. But Luminon is a very, very cool program. I don't really care about the program. What I'm talking about is concepts, right? Concepts are important, like the concepts of lighting and what the different types of light do. How you can move the camera instead of moving the object so it's not so intense on your rendering. Those are more important than any specific program. It's knowing the concepts of lighting, knowing the concepts of highlights, midtones, and shadows. So perfect white, 50% gray, and then 100% black, right? That's your range. And then all colors are actually along that same range as well. When you're using RGB, there's a range of 255. So there's a range of 0 and 100%. And then what it does is typically mix those together. Now in printing, it's even more so, because really everything that you print out that's going to go and become color is in black and white. That's the real thing that I discovered when I was young. I was like, wait a minute, all this stuff's black and white. How does it become color? Well, the way it becomes color is that they take it, they burn it onto a press, and that press is like a big stamp. So they take the stamp, they put the color on it, and then they stamp it in that color. That's it. This thing is black and white, everybody. It doesn't have any color until they add the color to it. And you can put a different color on there. You can put magenta on there, green, yellow, Pantone color, whatever you want. And then when it presses on that paper, guess what it's going to be? It's going to be that color. Now, if you combine the right colors together with the right directions of the dots that are in there, because if you have them the wrong way, very bad. If you have them all going the same direction, very bad. It's called moire pattern. So you have to have them the right direction. And when you have them the right direction, it just stamps it in the 3 different colors. That's why when you're in Photoshop, you might see that it has different channels. Those are different channel colors. So red, green, and blue in the case of the screen, or CMYK, which would be in the case of printing. They also have 6-color printing, 8-color printing, and man, we could do that for endless hours, everybody. I have 30 years of graphic design knowledge. I can teach you how to do t-shirts. I can teach you how to do billboards. I've done everything that you can do. 100% achievement in real life. Any type of graphic design, from website design and all the way back down to making little labels for nail polish. I mean, that far. that kind of wide dynamic. I could teach you all of that stuff. But today, we're learning about camera. We're learning about camera movement and animation. I have to get my obligatory sneeze in. We're learning a bit on lighting, and we're learning about rendering. So let's go ahead and render this again, just so we can get and take a look at this. Now, how can we make this, spice this up a little bit? Always a second one. How can we spice this up a little bit? Well, we could try to put our own feel in it. Now, earlier, you saw me change the color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to add a little bit of a kind of a reddish pink in this one. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a bluish, kind of a light blue there. And then we're going to render it again. It's all about the rendering, everybody. Look at this. How does that feel? You see, remember, it's about feeling. The same thing. Thank you, Unforgiven. It's about feeling, how you're making the viewer feel. Same thing with graphic design. The same thing with 3D design. That is pretty awesome, don't you think? Look at the way that it shines at the end. You can see the different color here, the different color here. You can see the difference, the dramatic difference in the way that it looks. Kind of like he's looking at something in the dark. The area around him might be dark. And then, of course, we got some sort of light shining in. Maybe it's a campfire. Maybe it's something like that. And he's looking off there. It gives a really different dramatic effect when you're using a combination of different lighting. Now, I can actually make it where the lighting is not reflecting, but once again, look in his eyes, right? Look in his eyes. Look how cool that is. It actually put the blue light in his eye and then the red light in there. And I can make it where it doesn't render in there, by the way. I can make it where it doesn't reflect that light. That light doesn't cast a reflection. And then, of course, we could go real deep and we could talk about, refraction and all of that stuff. We're not getting into that today. We're just going to teach you the basics of rendering. And rendering is really all about lighting and, of course, texturing and coloring all the different things. It's what kind of material that object is, right? So if you have a certain material, like right here, I'm not so worried about this bag looking like it's actually leather or it's actually has a pattern in it or something like that. I decided to go with a nice solid kind of greenish thing because it's more cartoony, right? If I tried to make it super realistic, it would detract from Norbert, and I don't want it to detract from Norbert. Norbert is the star of that show, everybody. I want people to look at him and not be distracted by this. And if I put a bunch of stuff on here and did that stuff, it would make it look more distracting because he is so detailed and he's coming out from behind there. It actually draws your eye, right? Because that's what your job is. Your job is to draw the eye of the viewer to the thing that they're looking at. And most people, the first thing they look for, and babies as well, by the way, faces. Faces are the number one thing that people look for. So that's why I have him kind of leaning out the back. By the way, he's actually all there. He's actually around the back of this as well. You can see him. He's actually standing in the air around the back. Now, you don't know that because it looks like he's holding on to it, but he's just standing in the air there. If we look at the 3D model, he's all there. And I can make his tail wag, and I can do all sorts of fun things. But the only thing that really the person needs to see is that he comes around there. Now, at the end of the stream, everybody, you're going to see Norbert reach down and give this a hug. He's going to give this a hug. That's what it does on the Kismet Love Train when it rolls out. So watch for that when we roll out of here. But again, look how nice that lighting is. It's a whole discipline in itself, understanding lighting. And lighting is what makes your rendering way better. Maybe you want to be more warm, right? Let's make this a bit more warm in the lighting. So we're going to go in, instead of the blue, we're going to go into a nice kind of yellowish orange. And I'm only going to change the one light. I'm going to leave the other one the same and then feel the difference on how it feels, right? I feel the most thing you got to do is you got to have an emotional reaction to your layouts, emotional reaction to what you're doing, and it's got to have a feel to it. If it's just plain and there's no lighting and it's just lit perfectly normal, I don't feel like it has a style. I don't feel like it has a soul to what you're doing, right? And that lighting is what gives it that soul, what gives it that thing. And this actually is too much. This is too much to do, but I just did it so it's really obvious when it changes, right? It's super obvious. I would actually change this down to, say, 250 to make it a bit more subtle. And then this one over here, 250, make it more subtle. And then when we look at it, it's not so harsh. It just gives you a nice even feel and then gives it. Now, again, we're layering it, right? So I've cranked it down. It's giving it a little bit of red. It's giving it a little bit of yellow. And then I would come in and use our other lighting to bring up just a little bit of the lighting, right? So we'll go in and we'll say a spotlight. And again, we'll go up on the top so we can see where it's at. We'll move it with the G over here. We'll hit 3 to show it from the side. Move it away, rotate it up, aim it at him, and then from the top again, we'll look and see if it's lined up. It is lined up. We'll look at the power. The power of it, let's say 150, right? Now, remember, this is a white light. We can see that it's white. And then we're going to render. I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not even going to look at the thing. I'm just going to assume that it's there. And I'm going to render it. Can we see that it's affecting it? Now, the best way to know if it's affecting it, again, turn it up to like 5,000. Render it again. And that will tell you whether the light is shining on that object. And we can actually see it right here. You can see it right there in the front, and it is shining on there. Now, remember that spotlights, because the distance that you're going to have the spotlight is going to be a lot softer. So you got to crank it up a little bit higher. Now, I can move it closer like this, and then render it again. And then you'll see that difference. Now, another thing that you see, look at what's happening along the front there. You can see the edge of the cone of the light is hitting the edge of that. Right? And then, of course, the light is much brighter now because the source of the light is closer, right? Which is something that you want to work on, right? So that's another thing as well. Now, I could actually rotate it even more so to give it a real spooky effect, because you know how when you hold your flashlight and you aim it up into your face, we can do that as well. So again, we're basically layering the different types of light. And again, I can move it way up like this. Probably want to move it over just a little bit. Oh, move the whole thing over. Come on, move the whole thing. Click out. Click back in. Nope, it's going to be like that, are you? Fine, I'll do it from over here. Not giving me the whole light. There we go. There we go. Okay, and then we render it because I want to get it, you know, kind of more under the side of his face. There we go. And so now we have that. And again, see the cone of the light right there? It's giving you that more spooky, like Norbert's like peeking in your window. He's like peeking in your window. He's like, Norbert, what the heck, bro? He's like, hey, you got some cookies? So, again, having that lighting. Now, you can see that this is a hard edge here. Now, when spotlights, you can go in and you can adjust the angle of that interior edge. I'm going to bring this way down like that, and then we're going to render it again. It's kind of coming from the side as well, but you'll see that that edge is a bit softer than it was before because I brought the spotlight so it has more of a gradient or more of a blend between the edges as well. You're going to see it's much softer here, much softer there. And again, if I bring it way out like this, and then we render it again, you can see that on his face and in this edge, it's going to be a bit more. I know how easy it is for you guys to see that, but you can adjust the actual blending of the beam, right? The blending of the beam in there, and it actually says it right over here, blending, over here on the side. So you can adjust that. You can also adjust the size of the cone. So if you want it to be really wide like this, and then render that, you can see that it's going to widen that out as well. And you can see we're getting a bit of lighting up under here. And you can see that it's actually being blocked by the edge of his fin there. You can see this is actually the shape of this fin down here being shined up like that. And again, we're giving a different thing. Now, that's way too bright, by the way. Again, we'll turn that down to, say, 2500. We'll cut it in half. We'll take a look at that. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Still too bright. Let's crank it way down. Let's go down to 1500. I'm just giving you a feel. Again, eventually this kind of stuff should be a feel for it. As opposed, still too high. Again, I can move it further away and help it that way. Let's go down to 500 now. And then render that. And see how much softer and nicer that is. Feel the difference? Oh, man, that's much better. Much better. So it's much softer. It's not washing out his face. It does give you that extra light. We still have the highlight over here. We still have the light over here. Now, at this point, I would actually probably turn it down even more so. Again, we're just kind of doing it. So we'll do 250. This light over here, it actually turned up just a little bit. Let's say 500. And then we'll render that again. So it's kind of mixing a little bit more. And then you can see that in here, we still got all of our texturing. We still got all of our nice lighting, our nice shadows in the fingers. We still get the feel that this thing is round, right? So you're getting that real feel that the gigantic, super looting bag is round. And you can see his face and you can see his eyes. And then up here, look at this nice glow that's going on up here. See, it's filling in the shadows with that kind of yellowish feel, and then it feels much warmer. Now it feels nicer to you, right? It feels nicer to see Norbert. It gives him that warm feel, like a happy, warm summer day as well. Now let's make him super creepy, simply by just changing the color of the light. So now we'll change it back to blue, and then we'll fill the same one, but now he looks like he's up to something, right? Put a 1 in the chat if you think Norbert is up to something in that shot. Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Again, that's how you make somebody feel up to something is, again, it's all in the lighting, not necessarily in the thing. Now, I could also give him a little evil grin. I could make one of his eyes squinting. I could do all of that kind of stuff to give him a little bit more of an evil feel to him. But again, it's all about that lighting for sure. Hey, what's up, Rocha? Thanks for coming in, hanging out. Appreciate you. We're talking a bit about working with lighting right now. And mostly rendering. This has to do more with rendering than going deep into lighting. But again, that rendering is important. It's important on the feel of the overall rendering. Also, if you haven't noticed down here in the wheels, see how the light has caused this nice shadowing here? And we got this soft shadow that kind of shadows out here. This is making this wheel look more three-dimensional. I'm going to go in and I'm going to turn that spotlight off. We'll turn that spotlight off, tell it not to render. We'll render it again, and we're going to look at that wheel again. And we're getting some shadow there. Oh, that's actually even nicer because we didn't wash out that edge. But see how we've got a little bit of that reflection of our red in there? So that's really giving it some style. Up here, you can see the highlights of the yellow in here. Again, it's giving it some flavor, right? It's giving it some style. And those little highlights is those little details like that is what makes stuff look great. For sure, for sure. Now, could I go in and put a wood texture in here? Absolutely. Could I make it even more fancy and detailed and make it look realistic? Sure. But what is my subject? What do I want people to... It definitely looks nefarious, right, Richard G? He looks like he's up to something. But again, you got to think about what your subject is. My subject is Norbert, which is why he's more detailed than everything else. I want people to look at Norbert, and when Norbert reaches down to, hug the super looting bag at the end of my love train, that's what I want everybody to look at. I want him to look right at his face. His eyes actually squint a little too, everybody. He squints a little, and he has a little bit of a smile, and he reaches down, and he hugs the bag on the way out. And again, if you want to see that, you'll see it at the end of my stream when the Kismet love train rolls out. Just put binoculars on him. Yes, there you go. There you go. So again, that's a bit about how to animate the camera and then do this. So again, we're going to go ahead and look at our camera over here, and we're going to do that same thing. Now, one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with cameras is I'll remove any cameras that I don't want to use. So I'll take all the camera out, and then I'll go ahead and add a new camera. We'll get that in there. We got to go down here and clicky some stuff. Let's make sure we're in our timeline. Come on, fingers. What the heck? Timeline. There we go. We're already in a timeline. And then we're going to go ahead and take our camera here. We're going to put it up at the top of the scene over here. And we're going to try to find our camera up here on top. There it is. We're going to move our camera over right into the scene from on top. We're going to hit 0. And see, we're not even seeing them, right? That means the camera is up too high vertically. We can see it over here on this other view. So hit G, move it down, get it in there. And again, these two things, let me take that out. These two things interact with each other. So I can just make it just on his face. I can make it down lower. Now, again, this also has to do with the camera along with the lighting. So if I go to the side and I rotate this up, now you're having more of the hero shot, right? And I'll make this a bit bigger so you guys can see that. Now you have more of the hero shot where you're shooting from below, right? That's why people do that. They shoot from the lower side to give you that bigger feeling, that hero shot. You want to watch as I try to make them look smaller, everybody. If you make them look smaller, easy. You just take the camera, you put it up to the top, and then rotate it down from below. He's still the same exact size. He didn't change size at all. But it gives a totally different feel to it when you are angling the camera in a certain way. So another great thing about camera angles there. And of course, the type of lens that you use is very important. But I like to do, say, something here and then move it away. And then we've got that as well. Now, we're going to do the same thing we did before, but we're going to use Norbert as an example. And we're going to go ahead and move this into the scene a little bit. There we go. And we're going to animate the camera. So we're going to hit the camera here. And then we're going to say, actually, we'll move that over just a little bit. And then we'll go to the top here. We'll move the camera over. Again, we're not going to move Norbert. We're going to move the camera. Yeah, we'll move him over here. Actually, we can move him off the scene. That's even better. Let's move him off the scene. And again, instead of moving him, I'm moving the camera. It's a really fantastic trick that you can use. So again, I'm going to say location. Notice that over here, a whole bunch of stuff popped up over here that has to do with the camera itself and all of that that I can modify. and pull that over just a little bit so you guys can see that. This is the camera here, and it's telling me that the camera is animated at or keyframed at 0. So I'm only going to do 15 frames, which is like half a second. So we're going to see him move across the screen very, very quickly. So now I'll go ahead and move the camera again, and we'll just have him just go right across. This is cool every time. It's funny every time. And then we'll hit I, and we'll just say location. So the location of the camera is going to move. Now, how is it going to move? It's going to move perfectly along the X as well. I can also could have locked it to the X by just hitting X while I was moving it. But you'll see that now it's animated. So he just whoop, 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 whoop. Now, something we have to talk about, timing, right? That obviously is way too fast, right? That doesn't feel right. So let's go ahead and add some more frames by saying, okay, we're going to go up to 100 frames here. And I'll shrink this down so you guys can see those 100 frames. There we go. And so now, instead of it doing a 15-second, we can adjust where the camera's at by simply grabbing these things here and moving it forward. So say, let's put it at 100. And then remember, it's all about how it feels. How does it feel now? Feels different, doesn't it? Feels different. Now, does it feel like the speed at which a train should go? It's kind of there. Kind of feels like it. Now, I have a really nice machine, by the way, everybody. So when you're doing this, I would suggest that when you're doing the animation part, if you don't have a real beefy machine like I have, you can turn your textures off, which you can see in his eyes there. We no longer see the transparency of his eyes. You can also go in and change your different modes. So if I open this up a bit more, I can go to make him gray. Right now, it's actually showing me the back faces or the what's known as X-ray. Turn those off. These are all controls, by the way, for animating his eyes and making his eyes blink and do all of that fun stuff. That's all subtle character animation. But again, you can also do it in wireframe. You can also say, wait, don't show me the back frames. If you don't show the back frames, so you can see, like, we can see all the stuff in the back, all the shapes in the back. But we turn that off, it'll only show us the front. And then that will give you a more realistic idea of the speed. So you want to crank down as many things as you can. You only care about speed. You don't care about the textures or the lighting or any of that stuff. You care about whether the speed feels correct, right? And so he's just going to kind of move across there at a certain speed. I feel like it's a little fast. So again, we're going to go ahead and take these keyframes and we're going to roll it down to say about 1 second. Let's see how that feels. Still too fast, right? Now, it actually is going faster. Now, the reason why it's going faster, and this is another concept I want you to understand, is that it had 100 frames to do it before, and now it only has 60. So instead of having a second and a half, it only has instead of having it 2.5 seconds, it only has now 2 seconds. So it cut off the time. So it actually sped it up. So important to know. If you want it to go slower, you add more frames. If you want it to go faster, you reduce the frames. So let's go ahead and bring the frames up. Let's say to, again, you should do it in multiples of 30. So if I want to go to the next one after 100, it should actually be 120 because if we add 30 to 90, that would be 120. And then we'll go ahead and add that in. We'll take this, we'll move it to 120, which should give us an additional 30 seconds. And then now it should feel slower like that. Now, again, I got a really nice machine, everybody, so I can crank it way up. And you guys can see it coming through. I can actually even see it fully lit with textures and all that stuff in there. But you can still see that it's kind of lagging a little bit, right? Got that little jumpiness to it. It's not necessary. Not necessary. I just go ahead and just do it usually in this mode. And that feels about right. It's coming through there like that. We can also hide our back frame so you can't even see. Because now it looks like Norbert's moving, right? It looks like he's actually moving, not the camera. And this is the illusion. I do a lot of illusions here on stream, by the way. I'm like a wizard. A lot of illusions that make it look like it's doing something, but actually something else is making that do that thing. I do that with my animations. I do that with my opening sequence. I do that with a lot of things here on the stream, just like I showed you on the Love Train. Well, I'm one of the very first people, by the way, to do full screen alerts. Let's do it again. Crazy Aussie, we'll bring him in again. See, that track is what's moving, not the train, right? So the track is what's actually moving, and then the track sits still. It looks like the train is moving, but it's actually the camera and the track is moving. So the camera is moving across the train, and it looks like the train is moving forward. It's an awesome trick that makes it take a lot less time to render and makes it so much easier for you to do your thing up in here. Now, if we wanted to render this animation, we could go up and we could say render animation. Now, before you do that, make sure you got all your ducks in a row before you do that over here in your output and especially in your render engine. So let's talk about why I use cycles. If you guys missed it earlier, there's different ways of rendering. Like right now, we can see that his eyes have that kind of weird reflection because there's no transparencies. But if we actually render it, we can see that there it is. There's that transparency. We can see there's a kind of a glass part over the top or membrane over the top of his eye, like your real life eye. Like you can see there's reflections in my eyes of the lights that are in the room. So, again, we've got that going. The lighting, very nice, by the way. Looks very, very nice. I like that lighting. Gives it a good feel, a good warm feel to Norbert there. He's looking super cute. Now, I also am using my GPU. I have a 4090 in this machine. So the difference between the 4090 and the 1080, I always do it in minutes, everybody. I render on one and say, okay, that's how long that took. That's how long this took. So I took this very thing and I rendered it on my previous machine. And each frame took 15 minutes. This frame took about 3 minutes. Let's do it again. This one takes about, 2 minutes and 85 seconds. So very, very quick. 4 minutes. There we go. 4 minutes. So that's, let's just call it 10 minutes that it just saved in that same exact render. So 10 minutes is a difference, especially when you're doing 100 frames, right? 100 frames times 10 minutes is 400 minutes. There you go. I've actually left stuff rendering across 35 computers before for 6 months because they're rendering each individual part. And it was a really big rendering of the Anaheim Convention Center. It was a fly-through of the Anaheim Convention Center. And the Anaheim Convention Center is huge. It's the second largest convention center in the world, by the way, or in the United States. Absolutely huge. You might have been there for BlizzCon at some point or another. Big time. And that was back in the day, everybody. That's when they had like 133 megahertz machines. Not like they have now. Your phone is more powerful than those computers back in those days. It took forever. But, I did get it done. The client loved it. They paid us and cha-ching, and I was out of there. On to the next thing, which I really like. And as you can see, everybody, again, we can go in and we can adjust this. Now, there is a ton of options in here. I'm not going to go over every single little feature, everybody. You don't need to know all this stuff. Probably the most important thing you want to know is about noise. Noise is the problem of when you render something. See how this has all those little dots that you saw there for a second? That's noise that can happen. You can go in and you can denoise it so it looks more realistic. So you don't have all these little tiny squares in there that look like basically like a little salt and pepper got put onto your image. And you can see that my samples in here, and I'll just show you my settings. My max samples is 4096. I have denoise off right now. If I turned it on, you're not really going to see that big of a difference in this particular image. But there we go. I turned it off. You'll never see the difference. But if you zoom way in, let's see if I could zoom in while it's rendering and see if you guys can see it, because this machine renders really fast. So I got to zoom in. You'll see it right here. See that? And then now it's gone. So it already does a little bit of denoising. There was like a bunch of little dots there, and then it was done. So that's basically what denoising does. Now, I don't really need denoising on this particular subject, but there is sometimes that you do need to denoise all of that stuff. I'm going to put his eyes in because it's freaky. There you go. So I'm not using this denoise up here, which is part of the viewport. I'm using the render denoise down here, right? And if I turn that denoise off and then render it again, you're going to see a little bit of different stuff. See what I said? See that? How it's got all that noise in there? It's not smooth. Now, sometimes you might want that. Maybe you want it to have a little bit of noise in the thing. I don't. I don't want it to have that noise along that edge. I want it to be denoised. Now, the one I use is an accurate pre-filter. Passes are albedo and normal, and it's an open image denoise. I find that's the best for what I'm doing. I'm doing like animated characters and, panels that are opening and all sorts of advanced things like that, but not really human figures. And again, see how that smoothed that out? Yeah, that's important. That's an important thing, everybody. If you're getting that noise in your 3D rendering, that's the denoiser. Now, you don't really need it in here. If I zoom in here, you can see it's not denoising it. That's what this other one does over here. If I click this, it does it in the view frame, right? So you got your viewport up here, and you've got your rendering down here. Now, if I do it in the viewport, it's just sucking up extra CPU cycles that it doesn't need to do. And really, I don't even need to see the textures. Mostly when I'm working on the animation, I have it like this. I have it so you don't even see any of the stuff. And I'm just working on timing, and then fine-tuning it, a little frame this way, a little frame that way. Is it this way? Is it interacting with another object? How does it come together? How does it feel? Sometimes it may be perfectly mathematically right, But if it doesn't feel right, it's not going to feel right to the person watching it. So it's always about feel right, right? So I could go in and, make everything perfectly matched up, but depending on the shapes, so like in a graphic design, depending on the shapes and how big this shape is versus how big this shape is, it's going to feel unbalanced, like it's going to tip over the feel of the actual layout. So taking that into consideration, you want to balance the shapes, and the same thing in here. You want to balance that need to look at it at very high quality, and that need to get the timing just right. For sure. So that's something you want to think about. You want to think about your rendering and how many samples it's doing. The higher those samples, the longer it takes. 4096 is more than enough samples, everybody. And you want to have your noise threshold down at 0.05. Now, I'm going to show you the difference. Watch if I change the noise threshold. I'm going to set the noise threshold to 1, which is normally the default. Watch how much longer it takes to render. Well, maybe this is not a great example because it went real fast. So it took 3 seconds, right, to do it. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it at 0.05 again. And then I'm going to render the same exact thing again because my machine's so fast, everybody. It's kind of hard to see the difference between the two. But now it took 4 seconds. And you're like, well, Kismet, why did it take longer if you made it smaller? Because the 1 is the distance in which it is doing that function, right? So the noise threshold, and when I made it smaller, it means that it's got to calculate that noise to a smaller degree, right? To 0.5. If I make the noise threshold like 5, well, I think most I can do is actually 1, or just turn it off altogether, and then render it. It'll just render super fast, like that usually, within 3 minutes. But then again, what do we got? We got our little bit of noise in here, right? See that little bit of noise? It's not smoothing that out. I don't know if you guys see. Let me zoom way in. You can see all the little pixels in there, right? It's not smoothing out those pixels. So it's still going, by the way. It's still going. It ain't done yet. It's saying like 19 minutes that's going to take. And it's going to get way in there. There it goes. Now it's starting to smooth it out. And it's going to make it hyper realistic. But is it worth your time to render that for like 19 minutes? I don't think so. I think the best thing to do is just do exactly what I do, 0.05. Render that sucker out, and you'll never know the difference. Of course, if you have an eye for it, you can see the difference. I can. But, again, that took 4 minutes versus taking 19, 20 minutes or however long it said it was going to take. So, again, 0.05, 4096. Turn your denoiser on. Use those settings right there. If you can't see it, zoom it in on there. I should have like a magnifying glass here when I'm doing these so I can zoom up on it. I'm sure there's a thing in there. And again, there's a whole bunch of stuff. You can see I have these ones down, max bounces, clamping, and caustics. These are all have to do with the reflection, how many times the light bounces off an object, and so on. And I've adjusted those, but I'm not going to get into those. Those are deep, deep stuff. We can also do motion blur, so he blurs when he goes across. Film exposure, so you get that old film feel, and so on and so forth. There's so many things you can go down the rabbit hole in, but those are the basics of rendering. Now, when you actually go to render it, you need to tell it what size it's going to render. You can see that my size is 1920 by 1080, which is the higher end of the HD. Now, of course, you have 4K and 8K. If you want to do it at that level as well, that's going to take a lot longer, for sure. Now, one of the things that I think it should have is when you click this, it should have pre-done size. It should pop up with 1920, 720, and all of the other, 1080, 720, and so on. It should have a pre thing there. But you can save different presets and bring them up. You can see my frame rate right here is 30 frames per second, so that when I move it to 30 and it moves, it should take 1 second to get from here to here, right? And I do 30 frames. Some people do 29.97, which is the old school film. I use that for many years, and then I think it becomes obsolete because it's mainly going to be on the computer and not being shown on those old TVs. Most people have an HD TV now, so you don't need to do it like these old TVs. Some people still feel like it gives you a different feel to it by going at that frame rate. I don't see it, but then again, hey, whatever floats their boat, man. I just go 30. Now, there's also a thing here, and this is really important as well. You can see I'm going to TIFF file, which means that it keeps, or maybe you can't see it. I'm just going to tell you what it says. It says TIFF file here. And TIFF file is a tagged image file format. It is one of the oldest formats in the computer. And what it does is it does not compress your image. Your image is going to be 100% of whatever renders, right? So you can compress it later when you go to make it into a video or whatever. But the original image, which is basically like a flip book, everybody, it's going to do render an image for frame 1. Then it's going to render an image for frame 2, and then 3, and then 4, all the way up to how many ever we have, 120 currently, or 1,200. Or 10,000 or 50,000. So say 10 minutes per frame, 50,000 frames. That's a lot of time. That's 500,000 minutes, right? I think it is 500,000 minutes. Yes. Hey, Siri, how many hours are in 500,000 minutes?
500,000 minutes is 8,333.33 hours.
So 8,000 hours it would take to do that, right? And you're like, well, Kismet, how do they even render anything? And that's why they have giant render farms, and they take different parts of the frame, say frame 0 to 30, they'll send it to this one, and then 30 through 60, they'll send it to the other one, and so on. Or they'll really send, I usually do batches of 500. So 500 to this computer, 500 to that computer, 500 to this computer, and then they're tandem rendering. So if it's going to take, say, 30 minutes, well, it's going to take 30 minutes across 3 computers, which means that basically I just cut the time down. So say it's going to take an hour and a half. I cut it up into 3 different computers. It's going to take 30 minutes, right? So because 3 computers doing it, if they're all the same speed and all the same cards and whatnot, obviously they're going to vary depending on the quality of your machine. But yeah, big time. Big time. Do manufacturers publish their lighting metrics and databases for all the different rendering softwares? They absolutely do. They have lighting sheets that you can do, especially when a really cool thing to do, by the way, if you guys are into lighting or you get into lighting so you can light your 3D things, or even if you're a streamer and you're worried about light color and stuff like that. Like I actually have a warm light on me, so I don't look like I'm cold. I can make myself look weird too. I can go into lighting and I can make it blue lighting, and then I look like I'm half dead. And again, getting this perfect smooth pink color is not easy, everybody. It's not easy. It's a very fine-tuning thing, and then you do it and you see if it looks good, and you record it and you look on the recording and see how that goes, and you do that over and over and over until you find that perfect balance. Probably getting skin tone right is the toughest of the thing. Now, if you go back and look at some of my streams from a long time ago, my older camera, I didn't have the awesome face cam that Elgato has. It's probably the best camera I've ever owned. It's so easy. You just set it up, set it and forget it, everybody. I never have to think about it. My other camera, I had to readjust it every time I loaded up the stream, every single time. I had to readjust the settings every single time, every time it loads. Whenever I'm doing, I still have it over there. Every time I'm doing a Lego stream or whatever, or an unboxing or whatever, I have to go over there and readjust those settings, and I have them all, I know what they all are, because I have to set them every single time. But on this one, I don't. The face cam, I can just set it and then never think about it again. And it does really great flesh tones. Really, really great flesh tones. So I highly recommend that. But you can go into, like, what's that big camera store? H&J or something like that, or L&J or something like that. I forget it. Just for a second, it just jumped out of my head. But it's like a camera store. And if you go in and look at the camera store and look at the lightings that people buy for it, you can see the different wattages, what kind of wattage levels they use. There's a lot of people out there who do photography work, and that's basically what we're doing. We're doing photography, right? But we're just doing it in a whole bunch of pictures at the same time, right? So you got to know the basics of lighting and photography. 3-point lighting is a great one to look up. I've talked about it before. I'm actually using 2-point lighting right now with actually a third light. Now, there is actually a great trick to rendering when you're doing that, and I'm going to show you that right now. In here, what you want to do is you want to have a little bit of light like this. See along my edge here? See this lighting? This is called backlighting. When you backlight someone, it actually gives them an edge and makes them look more three-dimensional, right? And that's really the reflection of my green screen right now that's doing that. But you can have a lighting coming from behind. So let's go ahead and give Norbert a light from behind. We're going to go ahead and take this lighting, and we're going to turn this around this way. And we're going to really crank this one way up. Where's our... Oh, wait, that's camera. Wrong button. Wrong button. Wrong thing. Where did our... Oh, we moved it down to the bottom. That's right. We moved it off to the bottom. Down here. Did we... Oh, we turned it off. That's what we did. We turned it off. No wonder I can't see it. All right. Yes, we moved it way down here at the bottom. Huh. Oh, that was the other one. That was the other one. Let's delete that one out. That's this one. Yes, there we go. See, I'm trying to look for the cone to see if it's the right one. All right, let's copy that one, paste that one, move it this way, rotate it back. We're going to adjust its cone because the cone, the spot shape is, oops, I'm on the wrong one. The spot shape, spot size, there we go. All right, we're going to bring that cone down, make this a bit bigger so you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm adjusting the cone size. Might be a little hard to see on that background, but we're adjusting that cone side. Let's look at it from the side. Make sure we rotate it down. And what we're going to do is kind of aim just a little bit up, move this really close, crank this way up. I'm going to make it real super obvious from behind. Then we're going to render it. And again, this backlighting is just to give him some light along the edge. It doesn't look like it actually is kicking on. Did I say, oh, I said 500, not 5,000. There we go. I was like, why is that light not brighter? There we go. Not giving it an edge. Not giving it an edge, that's what we want. Actually, let's rotate. Oh, it might not even be pointing at him. Hold on. Let's put this way. There we go. And bring, nope. Move that. There we go. We want to give him a bit of an edge. There we go. See, I can see it right there. See that little light? So you want to give it a little bit of an edge, and it makes it feel more three-dimensional when you're giving that stuff a little bit of edge. You can see I'm giving it a little bit of edge here, right? This really looks like it's starting to shape out, right? And again, we're stacking the light. So now we have 3-point lighting. Really, we have 4-point lighting because we have another light that we deleted out of there that we're using to shine up on his face. But really, 3-point lighting is like I'm using here. We have a key light, a fill light. Again, see how I'm blocking it with my hands? Those are the two lights that are shining on me right now. And then you have a backlight that's behind you, and that causes that edge. Now, I'm a lot smarter. I put my lights up higher so that they'll cause that edge. And then also when it reflects off of here, off of my green screen, which is literally right behind me, I can touch it. It's right there. It actually causes a reflection of that light. And then I key it out, or what's known as keyframing, or not keyframing. Brain. Wow. Went right out of the thing. It's called keying, where you drop it out. What's it called? Chroma keying. There we go. I knew it was in my brain somewhere. Chroma keying. So it's basically dropping the green out. Now, I used to have a blue background, so I couldn't wear blue. You notice I'm not wearing green? If I wear green, kiss that thing goodbye. Look, I got a thing that's green. You can't see it. It's being dropped out. It's freaky, though. Look at this. Ooh, I can make myself... Watch this. Kismet going to make himself disappear. It's like a trick. Isn't that wild? Freaky, right? So you can see what's going on with the computer in the background. Check it out. Freaky, right? Pretty cool. Cool green screening stuff. So there you go. So, of course, you have green. You can't use that. But if you're going to wear green, you need a blue screen, right? So you can drop out, you can have a blue background, drop out the blue without taking out the green. Of course, there's blue in green, so watch out for that. But that gives you the general idea of backlighting. Actually, I feel like I want to put this up even higher. Now, also a good backlighting is the sun. Using that for backlighting. Here we go. Look at this. See this? How we're creating this kind of thing going on there with this lighting kind of shining from behind. He's getting more light up here, right on the edge here. We're getting this nice light along the edge here. Again, that backlighting, giving it a more three-dimensional feel, more interactive light. Look at how we layered the lighting in now. Cool. I'm going to turn all the lights off to show you guys the difference. What we had originally. Right there. So originally we had this. This is what we started with. Now again, just some general ambient lighting going on there, which is just, I have some ambient reflective lighting of the environment that's reflecting. And then we go in and we just stack in our lights like this. And then now we have a total different feel to it, right? So lighting, very important to your rendering. Gives it a more realistic feel. Especially like, look right here in the eye, right? So it gives that real feel like you just got an eyelid there. a nice little hard line there that's giving a feel. You can see the kind of cheekbones or the nose area going into his kind of cheekbones there. Very, very cool, everybody. I'm showing you some of the best stuff ever, I'm telling you. And again, interacting those multiple lights, being very subtle with it. Look at what's going on around the heart here now. See how we got this light shining down around the edge? Gives it that kind of feel that there's a light up above that's kind of shining down. Kind of like a god light, right? Kind of shining down in there. But that backlighting, again, can make it look more three-dimensional, make it pop off the page a bit more than if you didn't have the backlighting. Again, there's with the backlighting. I'm going to turn the backlighting off. Let's turn that spotlight off. I think that was the right one. Let's see. And then there's without the backlighting. See, it feels a bit more flat, especially this part right here. See how flat that is? That's the first thing I noticed. I don't know if you guys, it was the first thing you noticed. But again, turn it back on, render it again. And then now it feels more three-dimensional, right? Gives it that thing, and it's nicely shaded, and it's not too overpowering. I moved it a certain distance away so that it wouldn't overpower. And then I would even turn that down more and try to be subtle. Be subtle, right? So I would do it at 2500. Turn it down to half that amount, and then the light's going to get much more subtle. I can also soften the light if I want to as well. I can soften the edges of the light. I'd say even more down. Let's say 1500, and then render that. Oh yeah, see, it doesn't have to be so pronounced, right? I just want people to get that three-dimensional feeling, but I really want them to look at Norbert. That's the number one thing I want them to look at. In the actual thing. But now we've given it some flavor. We've given it some style. We're using cycles. Now, again, my machine is really fast. So normally what I'm doing right here, if you got an older machine, it's going to take you 15, 20 minutes every single time you render it. So if you're going to render it without the color. Render it with just the actual lighting itself. So I'm going to go to Workbench, and then I'm going to render it. And you can still see the lighting itself. And after a while, you can just get it down on how the lighting feels, the general lighting of it. And again, we'll go in, we'll turn all the lighting off, show you something pretty cool right here. Is that you can see that this part got darker up here. I don't know, maybe you didn't see that this part up here got darker. The rest of this pretty much stayed the same, but a lot of our kind of highlights that were in there got lost when we turned the lights off. So again, it's all about how you do it. Also, you could use EV to just render it a bit faster to get a kind of a feel. Notice the difference in the lighting, how it feels different. It's not as soft. It's not as detailed in the lighting, in the shadows when you're using EV. And then you go to cycles, and then we render that again. And then look how much nicer that looks. And again, watch the noise go away there. We took the noise out. Much smoother, much more realistic shadows. And then, of course, the ray tracing of the light hitting the object and then bouncing off the object and hitting other objects. A great example down here. We're getting this kind of shine across here. And then, of course, all of the environmental reflections in the heart here because it's a plastic reflection. World reflection, the reflection in his eyes as well. So there you go. So without lighting, the stream would look like an episode of the Munsters in the 60s. Yeah, watch this. You want to see without lighting? Watch this. Again, if I turn my lights off, that's what you're going to see, everybody. You can see my glasses. That's a world of difference, isn't it? And then I turn my lighting on. Again, there's, I think that's my main light, and then the fill light. There you go. See? Amazing the things you can learn, right? And again, I'm downloading 30 years worth of knowledge to you guys. Yeah, B&H, that's the name of that place. I always find that place fascinating because I like to go in and look at the lights and the different types of lights and the amount of BTU it has. And again, adjusting that coloring as well makes a difference. How we doing on time? Wow! Man, I did that right on time. That's the second time I've done that, everybody. Remember, I write all this stuff out ahead of time, everybody. I go and try to hit certain points that I'm going to do. I don't write out every single thing I'm going to say, just a little point list of things I'd like to cover, and I just covered every single one of them. On point today. Now, if you guys like that, put a GG in the chat. Now, again, this is a special bonus stream for all of you guys for supporting the Kismet Love Train. Again, this is me going above and beyond, everybody. Normally, I don't stream on Fridays. But lately I've been streaming a bunch to show you guys lots and lots of love. Again, that is the basics. That is something you want to dive into, right? It's just like love. You got to dive into it and really get into it. Try different things. Try different types of lights. Crank if you're not seeing any effect, just make that light like 5,000 or 10,000. You say, okay, oh, I see it's having an effect, right? If you turn it to 10,000 or 5,000 and it's not having an effect, you're not pointing that light at that thing, or the light's not on, or the light's turned off. Because over here, I can actually turn the lights off. So if I go in and try to get this thing to switch, go down here. There we go. And go in and do this, I can actually see it in the thing because my machine is super powerful. And you can see that I can see it here, right? And I can turn it off over here. This is the rendering one up over there. And then this one's actually in the scene. See up there? Gone. And then in. Now, if you got a real powerful machine, this is awesome because it's like it renders it and you can see all the lighting live. But it ain't no nothing. Well, that's proper English there. It ain't mean nothing until you hit that render button. And that is what it's going to be. Because guess what? That's the photo you're going to use to make that animation. Now, the next step from here in rendering is to let this run for however many minutes it's going to go. So you take a sample of, say, 5 or 6 different frames in there. I would take first frame, 30 frame, 90 frame, 120 frame. That's what I do. I do 4 different frames. Figure out how long all 4 of those frames are going to take. So say they take an average of 6 minutes, right? Then you do 6 times 120. Hey, Siri, what's 6 times 120?
6 times 120 is 720.
Hey, Siri, what's 720 divided by 60? It's 12. So if I were to start this rendering right now and it took an average of 6 minutes each, it would be 12 hours. It's going to take to render that. Just sit, moving across the screen. 12 hours. Rendering takes a lot, and that's on my 4090, everybody. Now, I've let things run for weeks. And if you see that control panel that comes up, that's split across 3 different machines that took weeks to render. I think it actually took over a month to render that. That whole sequence of it coming up and the dial changing and the thing going here and this flipping and that going and then the number thing switching over and showing you the numbers and counting down the numbers, and then the thing is filling and there's all sorts of stuff going on in the background. You can see the vault door screens changing, and I'm compositing a whole bunch of stuff in there. That's the next level of what I'm doing here. That's really advanced, where you're timing it to sounds and interactions and music in the background, and that's the compositing part. And you can do that in Blender. Highly recommend After Effects, going into like Final Cut Pro, or even better, right now, a super free program called DaVinci Resolve. Let's see if I can pull that up for you guys. For those who want to do some compositing, those who want to do some video editing completely for free. Let's see, DaVinci Resolve over here. Let me see if I can find their homepage. I've used, these are the Blackmagic design peeps. Let's go right here. There we go. Blackmagic Design, right now they're in DaVinci Resolve 18, so it's a free download. And if you buy the program, it's only $300. And you're like, kidding me, $300? That's a lot of money. Guess what? Guess how much I bought Final Cut Pro for? $1,800. Yeah, I sure did. I bought a bunch of other 3D programs. You know how much those were each? $1,500, $2,500 here, there. Bought Photoshop, it was $1,200. Bought Illustrator, another $1,200. I mean, that's a lot of money, everybody. $300 is cheap. That's super cheap. And of course, you get the studio one. It gives you all the studio effects. Don't buy it right away, everybody. Here's what you do. You get the free one. You try it for 3 to 6 months. And if you feel like you're using it every day, all day, and you need those other features, then buy it. But if you're not, then just use the free one and donate to them for making an excellent product, right? Again, you can donate them $20 or $50 or whatever it is. But if you do use it and you're using it professionally and you are using it, I highly recommend getting the $300 version. Now, have I gotten the $300 version? No, because I own Final Cut Pro, I own Premiere, I own After Effects, I own all that other stuff as well, and I just use it for processing. I use it for processing of things. Do I think I'm going to buy it in the future? Absolutely, because it's a fantastic program, and I always support creators, whether they create programs or whether they create emotes or whether they create art or whatever it is. I always pay for my stuff, everybody, if I'm using it professionally. In which I have done for the last 30 plus years. So I did it from 1988, everybody, which is Illustrator 1988, or it's known as Illustrator 88. That's when Illustrator came out, way back in the late 80s. Way back in the 80s, way back when. So again, that gives you a pretty deep insight into rendering, how to use your cameras, a bit of lighting, how to do different types of rendering styles, how to denoise. I taught you a lot of stuff, everybody. Just a tremendous amount of stuff in a short amount of time. Now remember, this VOD will be available. If you missed a bunch of that, you come back later and you're like, what were Kismet's rendering settings again? You can come back and try to pick it up then. Remember, it's going to go up there at 1080 over onto YouTube and on Twitch, and then also on Facebook over there as well, because I'm streaming to all 4 platforms at the same time, because I'm hardcore. And that's it for me, everybody. Now, there is no donations, or not donation, but giveaways today. We're going to try to get more donations later tonight. We're going to play Medieval Dynasty with my crew in not too long from now, about 5 hours from now. I've got 1,000 other things to get done before then. I'd love to play some more just solo. Wonder what we're doing for dinner. Maybe we'll play a little bit of solo. What do you guys think? Put a 1 in the chat. You think I should play a little bit of solo Medieval Dynasty to get practice? Oh, hold on. Let's send a text message to my buddy over at Bethesda. Hold on a second. There we go. Oops. Boom. All right. I had to post on Twitter real quick. A friend of mine over there at Bethesda, Lady Devon, is having my problem I used to have, gallbladder pain. I've actually passed out hundreds of times on my bathroom floor from gallbladder pain. It is one of the worst pains I've ever had in my life. I've actually passed out from it. That's how bad that pain is. It starts in my left side. I had one of the worst versions of it. And I know if any of you in the chat have ever had that problem. But she's having that problem right now. And I was so foolish because I wanted to remain 100% original parts because I didn't want to have surgery. And I thought it was a big thing. But it turned out I go in there for outpatient. I go in the morning. They knocked me out. They took my gallbladder out. I woke up in the afternoon and I was fine. And I never felt that pain again. But I did it for 3 to 4, almost 4 years of suffering, of just excruciating pain. Now, by the way, if I walk along and if I rub against something and I cut myself, I could cut myself clear down my arm and I'll be like, because that pain ain't nothing compared to that pain. We have internal pain, everybody. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you know what I'm talking about big time. But once I had that gallbladder out, though, I could no longer eat certain types of food. Like bacon is a real bad one. If I eat a lot of bacon or spicy food, forget about it. I'm going to feel super bad after that. So I have to be careful what type of food. But I would rather not have that pain and give up, eating tons of bacon. Now I could have like, maybe a bacon burger every now and again. But if I have like bacon in the morning every single day, oh man, I'm going to die. I'm going to die from excruciating pain. For sure, for sure. So I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her because I know what that's like to have that kind of pain. Now, I don't know if that's exactly what she has. She needs to go to her doctor and not screw around and be stupid like me and let it go for way too long. I mean, hey, I'm the king of learning the hard way, everybody. And that's why I try to teach you guys, like here in the thing, don't learn the hard way, learn the easy way. I just tell you, save you hundreds and hundreds of hours trying to figure that stuff out. I just told you, because I already spent those hundreds of hours figuring it out, save you that time in your life. So you can go on and do even more awesome things than the things that I get to do. For sure, for sure. All right, everybody say bye to Norbert. Time to roll out of here. Let's go. All right, everybody. I see all that love in the chat. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. Kidney stones are another thing that people wait and be stubborn about. Yes, do not screw around, everybody. Again, if I had known it was so easy, my doctor never told me it was so easy. They just knock you out until I got to the last doctor. Last doctor's like, they just an outpatient thing. You just go in there, they'll knock you out, they'll take it out. I had the 3 thing. You actually have multiple cuts. You have the 3 cuts or you have the single cut that takes your gallbladder out. I had the 3 cuts. I still have it to this day. I have scars where they went in and took that out. But I'll take the scars versus the pain any day of the week. That is absolutely for sure. Do not let that stuff go, everybody. If you're having excruciating pain, like me, now I have a problem with anxiety attacks because I have put a lot of pressure on myself to do more and more and more here in the stream, and I'm older, so I'm like, oh God, I'm falling behind on this. Oh, I missed that stream, so I want to try to make up that stream on the next one, and man, I want to try to raise more funds for St. Jude, so I better stream more, and so on and so forth. But I can only do so much, everybody. I can only do so much, and sometimes you just got to go, easy, roll, calm down, roll it back, bro, roll it back a little bit, reel it in, reel it in a little bit. You're pushing yourself too much. How do I know my gallbladder was bad? Number 1, I had excruciating pain in my side. It was like in my lower side, right down here, and then it started to go, and then I started having acid reflux from it as well. And then I was like, God, what is this massive pain that I'm having? It's very hard to concentrate or do anything when you have pain all the time. And then I started sweating all the time. And then I started overheating, right? So I have pain, I'm overheating, I'm sweating. I get so hot that I feel like I'm going to catch fire. I'm going to spontaneously combust. So I start laying down on the floor in my bathroom. Now, the reason why I'm laying down on the floor in my bathroom is because there's tile. And so the tile is cool and it's cooling me down. Right? Almost like I was going to, start the bathtub and put some cold water and get in there. So it was like my body telling me, there is something wrong, bro. And so I started taking this medicine that was supposedly supposed to help it. Well, great. I went from every day being in excruciating pain to every other day being in excruciating pain. Also found out later that medicine, luckily I cut it in half because it made me feel like I was going to have a heart attack. I've told this story before on the stream. It turns out that people were having heart attacks on it. And my doctor never bothered to call me. And that's when I decided, that was like 3 years of trying to use that medicine, everybody, and find the right dosage so it would reduce that pain. And it never did. It never did for me because I had the worst version of it. I had like really bad gallbladder pain. And so eventually they said, you got to have that out, because I went to the emergency room. I was like, I can't do anything. This pain will not stop. I've just been going on for 20 hours straight. I don't know if you've ever been in pain, like the kind of pain where like you can't even function. Your brain doesn't even work anymore. That kind of level of pain for a long time. Sustained pain. It's not like, ow, I cut myself. It's like constantly getting cut for 18 hours straight. That's that kind of pain. It's like a never-stopping pain. And that's why that's why I pass out, because it just goes on so long. I just can't handle it anymore. My conscious mind can no longer handle it and says, guess what, bro? We need to take a break. And then you pass out, and I wake up hours later, and here I am laying on my floor of my bathroom, and going, oh God, what happened? The first thing I think is, okay, good, I'm still alive. That's the way I think every day. But when I get up, I'm like, okay, I get another day. Let's make the most of it. Let's go teach some peeps some 3D animation, teach them about lighting, teach them about camera movement, teach them some of my best tricks in there. And now you understand the concepts. Now, the program is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what program you use. You're still going to need those basic concepts of lighting and rendering and using your camera moves and where you put your camera and how you can animate your camera and stuff like that. So this is a universal stuff. Yeah, wow, yeah, flare necks. That's something I would never go through again. And I wish I was smart enough to get it taken care of much earlier. And that's what I'm telling her. I said, don't let it go. Don't be dumb like me. But of course, I'm also in the middle of excruciating pain, so I'm not making the best decisions as well. See, when you're in the moment, like me with my dizziness, when it first started, it would be so disconcerting to me that I was, I probably shouldn't be entering into any contracts. I shouldn't be. It's like when they knock you out at the doctor, they tell you not to do any life-changing things within 24 to 48 hours because you're on that medicine. Well, that's the way it is to have gallbladder pain. That's the way it is to have a constant dizziness all the time when it's really bad. It's not a good time to make choices. You're not in the right frame of mind to make good choices. So there you go. Very informative by experience. Yeah, well, when you get older, you learn about all this stuff that you don't really want to know about because guess what? Those doctors don't care. A lot of doctors are like human mechanics. There's some good ones, and there's a whole lot of bad ones that don't care about you. They just want to get that paycheck, everybody. That's all they care about. You come in and get a whole bunch of stuff done just so they can make more money. That's what they care about. And I learned that the hard way, too. I learned that going through. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on doctors. Just so much money on doctors. My whole entire retirement, I have zero retirement. I'm 53 years old. Zero because I had to spend it on these doctors. But I'm not dead, and I am 53 years old, right? So I guess you have to have that balance in life, right? Yeah, you got to have that balance. So again, lessons learned. I learned the lesson. I had to go through the pain. And then this way you don't have to, right? You don't have to suffer as long as I did if you can take advice. Now, again, it's your life. They're your life choice. I'm not telling you what to do. But, look out for yourself. That's what I say. Thanks, everybody who scrolled it up over here. And, of course, thanks to all my patrons right down there. Let me go ahead and shower you guys with a bunch of Kismet love right over here. Did we get our retweets done? I wasn't even looking over here. Let me refresh. We sure did. Oh, let me give you guys a whole bunch more. Boom, 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 boom. You know what? I'm just going to keep pressing it until I feel like stopping. There you go. There you go. Massive amount of Kiz Caps there for being awesome. Now, again, everybody, I'm going to roll the Kismet Love Train on out of here. We'll be back later tonight. Oh, wait. I went in and asked if we should do a little bit extra. JC Hunter thinks I should do a little bit of Medieval Dynasty. I probably should go do 1,000 other things. You know what? I'm going to go do that instead. And then I'll play with my crew later. I'll play with my crew later. Maybe we'll play a solo game another time into the new year. And I got a bunch of stuff I'm setting up as well for the new year. Again, we still got tons of giveaways here in the stream later tonight and also especially tomorrow afternoon during our Fallout 4 mega build that we're going to do for the Wall of Hope, which is going to be hopefully a really super fun build. I've got it kind of already all thought out. You know how I am. You know how I am. So that's it for me. Again, I'll bring my schedule up. Now, again, we have 2 streams left. We have one tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then, 3 streams. 3 streams left. Tonight at 10 p.m. for Medieval Dynasty, and then Saturday we're going to have a bonus stream, which is not on this schedule, for that Fallout 4 for Hope, Wall of Hope we're going to build, and then Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for 7 Days to Die. And that'll be it, everybody. That'll be it. And then I'll be off until the 2nd. And then we'll be back full strength again with even more awesome stuff here in the stream. Got so many cool things lined up, everybody. Man, I spent a lot of time lining all this stuff up. Let's roll that schedule out. And I can help the stream out, everybody, by going to all of those social media links, especially the Patreon, patreon.com/Kismet. If you are watching this in the future on YouTube, you'll also see a little circle pop up over there where you can go ahead and click on that circle and subscribe. You'll see a little square to watch some more of my videos as well. Maybe some more Blender stuff as well. So there you go. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys later tonight in about 5 hours or so. See you around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye, everybody.
Hi, this is Noor. Thanks for watching. This is the sky.